It's 8:30 in the morning. We are here to continue our work on S5, Affordable Heat Act. And today we're meeting with folks from the world of delivered fuels and service. So I just wanted to welcome the fuel dealers that are coming in this morning, and thank you for coming to Senate Natural Resources and Energy. And we're looking forward to learning from you this morning about your work, more about your work and your thoughts around the transition that S5 contemplates to new types of heating appliances, as well as less carbon intense heating fuels. So I put a little paper at the head of the table so we can try to ask everyone some of the same basic questions. You know, your name of business, location, perhaps how long you've been in the business. And then I put 4 questions to help us sort of complete our survey. What products do you currently sell? Do you sell or plan to sell biofuel blends? Are you in the heating service business as well? Are you installing and or servicing heat pumps, or do you plan to in the future? Of course, feel free to add in anything else. The time is yours. We're going to go pretty quickly, 5 or 6 minutes a person, so that we can hear from a good sized sample. Once upon a time, we might hear from 4. This morning, I think we have a dozen people to hear from.
Just remind people to keep it on mute until they're ready to speak.
Okay, thank you. Right. Always good to have a wingman, wing person. Judy's reminding me that if you're speaking from remotely, if you can just leave your mic on mute, and then when we call you, flip it back on, we'll be able to hear you, and you should be able to hear us. So it's as Mr. Cody pointed out to me, it's one of the coldest days, not of the year, maybe in a decade out there. So everyone is counting on the very kind of services we all deliver. One thing I want to make really clear, in addition to us appreciating you coming to help us learn more about what's going on out there, is that the transition to cleaner ways of heating it's much bigger than this committee. It's going on nationwide, worldwide. So we're trying to figure out a pathway forward for everyone. This is not about creating winners and losers. It's about how do we pull together and get to a cleaner way of delivering fuel. We've worked in the last several years on workforce. We need people to do all the things we talk about in Vermont, like whether it's weatherization or heating, installing heating and servicing appliances. You all are a crucial network of businesses, and you have relationships with hundreds of thousands of Vermonters. So there's no way Vermont succeeds without you all being part of that path. So I want to acknowledge that and say it up front. It's not about leaving someone out, picking winners or losers. It's about trying to see a path forward that is for the benefit of everyone. So with that, I don't want to take more time away. Mr. Cody, do you want to join us, and then we'll launch from there?
Thank you, Senator Bay, members of the Senate Natural Resources Committee. It's really important from my perspective to respond to some of the testimony yesterday and my own testimony, because I think it's really pertinent to the 9 individuals that will appear after me. The 9 men and women are all members of the Vermont Fuel Dealers Association, and they are all brilliant. They understand how energy is distributed in Vermont, and they understand very complex systems that we just call heaters, but they understand to the finest detail. They have been and can take apart pieces of equipment and install them in the middle of the night, and many of them will tonight. So they can answer any technical questions you have about the ability for us to move to different energy sources. None of them own an oil well, none of them own a refinery, none of them own a wholesale distribution. They are retailers. And that's what's important here, because the discussion yesterday, when we're talking about reporting versus obligation. Reporting, yes, we want to work with this committee. We want to make sure that this form, which is quite frankly antiquated, is improved, and reporting is improved. And every retailer will have to report. We understand it. We already do. Make it better. Let's work together. But that is different from obligations. filling out a monthly form and paying your taxes is something we all do. An obligation is a new thing. And at your suggestion, I reviewed the testimony yesterday from Mr. Hand, the attorney, and Ms. Murphy, the attorney, with the assistant attorney general's office. I watched it 8 times. I recorded it. I transcribed it. And Senator Watson, you asked an amazing question. You said that Quebec company or that Massachusetts company, but you said at 30 minutes in, you said they're trucking it from Massachusetts or Quebec. The obligation is not on the Quebec company, is it? And Mr. Hand said, he's an excellent attorney, and you know, from Google I can see he does great work for Green Mountain Power. I think it could be applied to the wholesaler as they bring it into the state for sale into that state. And you asked a great follow-up question, Senator Watson. That Quebec company or the Massachusetts company, if their sale is reaching into the state, that product is for use and consumption in the state, they could be subject. Well, that's different, right? That's different than what we know, what we heard testimony last year. However, Senator Bray, you asked the excellent follow-up question. You asked them to further define that. You said, if the wholesaler were located out of state and an in-state vendor went out of state to purchase it, now that retailer, they are going to be the source of the sale in Vermont, and that is when the retailer would pick up the obligation. And Mr. Hand, the utility lawyer, said, that is correct, Senator. That is a more eloquent response than I gave you. That is correct, Senator. That is how fuel is distributed in Vermont. The wholesalers don't bring it to us, we go to them. And in Vermont, we go across very porous borders, and you're going to hear from very small fuel dealers. One of them can stare at a New Hampshire bulk plant from his office. And when he goes over the Vilas Bridge, the Vilas Bridge is still closed?
Still close.
So he's going to go around the Vilas Bridge, when he brings it back to North Walpole in his truck. He is obligated. Any assertion that this does not have an impact on retail, small retail fuel dealers and their customers, simply not.
So I'll do one quick thing. So that testimony, and then you and I talking back and forth yesterday afternoon, raised as many questions for me as it answered. So I'm going to make sure we double back to the lawyers and sort out that exactly what the current language is. We have, obviously we haven't passed the bill out, so we have the opportunity to modify that language to try to achieve a different outcome. And I would say, just without, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to sort of paint anyone into some sort of awkward spot. I would say, design-wise, we're looking to pick up create the obligation at the highest level, so that the obligation lives with fewer people, and that obligation will be fulfilled before retailers were delivering fuel. That's the design goal. We'll need to talk to the lawyers to make sure that that's the way it would work.
And can I give you one more quote before I take any time from this, and then come all this way here, which is, Mr. Hand said something that's incredibly accurate. I think everyone can agree on, no matter how you feel about this program. Mr. Hand said, the efficiency of the program, if it is a wholesale sale, I think for the efficiency of the program, ideally the obligation is applied as far up the supply chain as possible. I think you'd want to capture the wholesale if it's intended for consumption in the state. That's right, but that's not what this does. Don't wish it so, make it so. If you think that you can push the obligation because you have a permission structure from Ms. Murphy in the Attorney General's office to push it up wholesale, you haven't done it yet. Yeah.
Right. So there's going to be more meetings today. I'm guessing this weekend, beginning of next week, we will absolutely work to nail this down. And we will stay in touch on this.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll all be here.
With that, I'd like to go to Mr. Gray. Good morning. So I don't know if you heard the questions. I'll just say them very briefly again. You're welcome to add whatever you like, but I was asking to try to help us get sort of a consistent survey today. What products do you currently sell? Do you currently sell or plan to sell biofuel blends, Are you in the heating service business as well? And are you currently installing and or servicing heat pumps, or do you plan to in the future? Okay, so floor is yours, Mr. Gray.
Perfect. Good morning. Thank you for inviting me. I do have a presentation. Can I share my screen?
Yes, just a moment. We'll set that up. If anyone else who's remote is wants to share their screen when the time comes, can you put up your hand now so we'll know how to get that ready for you?
You can share your screen now, Mr. Gray.
Okay. I don't know if you heard that. You should be good to go. There we go. Thank you.
Okay, so everyone can see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, good morning. My name is Brian Gray. I'm the general manager of the Energy Co-op. We're a small energy company based in Colchester, Vermont. We deliver about 1 million gallons of fossil fuel per year, 1,000 tons of wood pellets, and we've installed over 1,500 heat pumps in the past 5 years. We also do about 120 energy audits and weatherize about 80 homes per year. The Energy Co-op is a unique fuel dealer and is well positioned to utilize the mechanics of the Affordable Heat Act to continue to grow our business. I see the following changes to our business based on what I've heard and seen in the Act. HVAC and weatherization revenue is currently 45% of our total revenues. We expect with the right incentives, more homeowners will be adopting heat pump technology, weatherizing their homes at a very rapid pace. This will allow the Energy Co-op to continue to grow and expand our services in these areas if the workforce is available. With anticipated credits generated by the heat pump and weatherization business, our hopes are to discount the fossil fuel sales to our existing customers and members. With the anticipated ramping down of carbon intensity values for clean biodiesel within an already tight supply, our company will need to reevaluate if the upfront capital infrastructure costs, as well as the anticipated customer demand, will make it feasible to offer this heating option. We currently do not do anything with biodiesel. We do anticipate more accounting requirements and government oversight, which will add to our expenses. So how will this affect our customers? So there's no denying that with current fuel prices, the per unit cost to heat a home with a heat pump is significantly less than most fossil fuels. With the added benefit of air conditioning in one unit, it makes this technology very, very attractive. Just a little history on what we've seen with heat pumps. Heat pump adoption started 15 years ago by homeowners who valued the environmental benefits. They really started it all. Over the past 5 years, heat pump adoption has been led by homeowners looking for air conditioning aspect, especially with the work from home COVID period. In the last year, with the high prices of fossil fuels, homeowners are looking to the financial benefits of heating with heat pumps. But in all cases, the homeowner that has adopted these technologies had the disposable income to absorb the upfront cost of installing these units. In today's market, we've seen a real slowdown in these services over the last few months because early adopters have already installed systems, leaving a smaller pool. Disposable income has shrunk considerably due to significant costs of living increases. And the Federal Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, has caused a lot of buyers to delay purchasing until they understand what the rebates are and they're in place. And of course, the biggest obstacle to fuel switching is the upfront costs. Heat pumps are not cheap. They're anywhere, depending on how many units, how you're going to deploy them, could be anywhere between $5,000 and $20,000. Weatherizing home is $5,500 to $15,000. The payback periods are long. There's no doubt there's savings, but the paybacks are way out there. And of course, disposable available income for these items are out of reach for a lot of Vermont households. Over the past year, our customers are getting financially squeezed from all sides. The spike in heating and transportation fuels is a big contributor to the increased cost of living. Heating oil is up 44% and kerosene is up 48% over the past year compared to the previous 4 years. In dollars, this represents an average increase of $1,300 per year, bringing the cost to heat an average home, that's about 600 gallons a year, to just shy of $3,000. That's a big number on our Vermont families. While the finite number is not known yet on how much of an increase this act will represent on a gallon of fuel, it's certainly going to add to it. And I leave you with a few points to ponder. Steep incentives and readily available financing for homeowners for heat pumps and weatherization is imperative to defeat the upfront cost obstacle. This moves forward at no pace at all if we can't find the dollars to be able to help folks make that switch. Delivery of incentives must be streamlined and made easy. Today, it's very difficult searching and compiling rebates from the feds, the state, tier 3 programs, efficiency utilities, other entities, and then figuring out income thresholds or pre-existing conditions is enough to make our consumers just give up looking for rebates. Cold climate heat pumps we install are tested to function down to an ambient temperature of minus 13 degrees. Obviously, today is an example of that. Vermont historically will reach these temperatures multiple times in a typical winter. We as a company never recommend removing an existing central heating system. I've heard testimony over and over that people are going to rip out their existing heating systems. That is just not the case if they want comfort when we're down to these low temperatures. We always recommend that they have an alternative backup to those heat pumps. And as fossil fuel demand is reduced, the cost per gallon to deliver the fuel to the homeowner will increase. The same mileage will required to deliver smaller amounts of fuel, and those increases will also be passed on to the customer. And finally, with a ratcheting down of the carbon intensity values for clean biodiesel, this will most likely cause more supply issues on top of what already is a small pool of available supply. Removing that below 20 ratchet slated for 2050 would bring more certainty of supply being available and help us move towards that goal. And with that, I thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you very much. As we're hearing from lots of folks, have you, Mr. Gray, did you send in your PowerPoint so we have it here?
It's on our website.
Okay, great. Ms. Newman just told me it's posted on our website, so anyone watching can look at that later. Thanks for all the information. With that, I'd like to move ahead and go to Anthony James. Mr. James. There we go. Oh, sorry. Please join us at the table. And welcome to the committee.
Hi, thank you for having me. Anthony James, Plumbing, Heat and Oil out of Bellows Falls, Vermont. My parents started business in 1967. I bought them out in 2009. I've worked with them through junior high school, etc. Started the number 2 heating business, fuel oil business, 1995. We got into the propane in 2009, and we provide a full line of service in plumbing, heating, heat pumps, propane. One thing I want to add, part of this PowerPoint, there's a surge in heat pumps. One thing I've run into is there's a lot of installers. A lot of guys have not been properly trained. The numbers are low. A lot of people were quick to install these and they didn't have their EPA certification, and they didn't have to purchase these heat pumps. So as they were being installed, my belief, the slowdown is, as these are getting installed and they're breaking down, and the difficulty to find someone to actually prepare them is overwhelming. With that being said, I truly believe passing this law and enforcing it, we're getting the cart ahead of the horse. The manpower is not there to take care of the heat pump systems yet. all in time, it will be. I think to look for a goal of 2030 is way too quick. Again, we're working on a disaster. He is right. I've had people say, now that I have my heat pump system, I want to rip out my primary heat system. I'm like, that's crazy. Your primary heat system takes 120 volts, an average of 10 to 20 amps. It takes very little power to run it. Your oil, your gas system. Each circulator is a little more than a half an amp. The burner motor is roughly half an amp. So the power usage for a oil, propane gas system is very little electricity. Your heat pump's going to be, if they do a 1-for-1, that $5,000 system he's talking about, 1 unit outdoors, 1 unit inside, probably not going to heat your house unless it's a tiny house. People were going 1-for-1s, doing a bunch of them because that was your best rebate. I don't know where the rebate stands today. 1-for-1, 230 volts, 240 volts for every outdoor unit, 30 amps. It's my mind that's ineffective and inefficient. You go with a 1 outdoor unit for 4 heads on a mini split. The outdoor unit goes down, you're without heat. There's no quick fix. The fastest I've been able to get any one of these up and running is 7 days. Today's 7 days is unacceptable. I wouldn't want to be that person relying on just a heat pump. So then they put in the wood stove because they don't have their fossil fuels because wood and pellets are being pushed. Wood is way dirtier than number 2 fuel oil. Number 2 fuel oil probably, and I'm throwing a dart here, I don't know the years, probably 15, 20 years ago was 4,000 parts per million sulfur. Then it dropped to 1,500 parts per million sulfur. Then it dropped to 500 parts per million sulfur, and today we're at 15 parts in Vermont. Oil is probably as clean burning as you can get. The average home, if you have an oil burner that will say uses 1 gallon an hour, for every hour your oil burner runs, you're burning one gallon. The average home, ranch, Cape, you're probably going to run, that oil burner is going to run approximately 4 hours in a day. In the heat world, that day is consistent of 24 hours. So if you're burning 4 hours of fuel oil or propane, one day, 24 hours, that's minimal. You're running a wood stove, you're constant pollution, constant smogging up there. It just doesn't make sense to be burning wood. I am a wood burner, by the way. I'm an oil burner. I do both because I want that backup. I do have heat pumps. I want that backup. As far as affordability, I don't think it's fair to ask the Vermont fuel dealers to absorb that, where we're looking at a 70-cent to $1 tax per gallon, no matter how it comes into the state. If it's the end user, the end user, if there's a $1 tax, that's going to the customer. Like you said in its presentation, oil's high enough as it is right now. At $1, right now we're adding 1 penny and 2 cents tax. If you're a commercial business, or 6%. I'm right on the Vermont-Hampshire border. I go over to New Hampshire. I do the gallons, 100 gallons by the price. It's $449.90. Vermont, we have all these taxes we got to add in, slows down the driver. We want to pay for these plants. This is going to be unacceptable to the end user, the taxpayer, our customer, your customer. One
quick note is, without getting into sort of a debate about the impact on fuel price, I think the 71 cent a gallon figure was I think the presenter said sort of a napkin math. We subsequently looked at it more carefully. I think those numbers are apt to be. I think that's not a very good estimate of the impact. So we're, want to be attentive to any impact, but I think, unfortunately, I think that number got out, and I think it's, I should never that large. I would be alarmed as well. but I don't think that's certainly not the way we're designing the program. The design of the program, which has more work to do, is aimed to make the transition to cleaner fuel as affordable as possible. That's like front and center. So I'm not debating, I'm just wanting to share with you here that we're aware of that and thinking carefully about it, but I don't think that number is helpful to anyone at this point.
My concern is, I'm not from Chittenden County, obviously I'm from Wyndham, I'm right on the Connecticut River. How are we gonna control New Hampshire? I probably have a half a dozen dealers that come in from Keene, New Hampshire, that peddle oil, they're already less because they're not paying the taxes. Who's regulating them? They're supposed to be. Who's gonna go check on these half a dozen or a dozen dealers that I'm competing with paying the tax? And then the big concern is once everybody's got heat pumps, fuel's gone up, so it's gonna cost more to make electricity. Is GMP gonna double like New Hampshire did?
Well, one thing.
My dad owns a laundromat. His light bill used to be $500. It's $1,200 today.
Yeah. See, in Vermont,
He's in New Hampshire because it doubled.
we have a regulated price electricity market. A lot of New England said we're going to deregulate. It had an upside. Some people were pitching very low prices. It's also the same sort of volatility that we see in oil prices when it got brought into the electricity market. If you look at Vermont's electric rates, they are going up, but it's a very slow rate of change because it's a fully regulated industry. So just try to compare. And they, to your point about folks coming across the river that are selling in Vermont and not paying that tax, Mr. Code has pointed that out, and we've had some conversation in committee. Regardless of S5, we'd like to do better on that. It creates an unclear playing field. People who are following the law are operating at a disadvantage by collecting the tax, remitting the tax, when others show up, sell in Vermont, and don't. And we would like to see that end.
So, thank you. Just a couple quick questions for you. Right now, do you send trucks to pick up the propane or fuel oil, or do they send trucks to you?
Both.
Both. So both happens. Okay. And then are you currently doing any blending of biofuel into your diesel?
No, my biggest concern with biofuel, we're talking about heating, but it voids the warranty on vehicles, most vehicles, if you're trying to run your diesel with it. It gels easy.
Yep.
My experience, and the guys here that sell it, they may be able to answer that question better. I don't sell it, and a lot of that is there's people I service that have received biodiesel, and at 10 degrees above zero, it has gelled up.
I also just want to thank you very much for coming up to testify from Wyndham County.
Thank you.
Really grateful.
So, my biggest concern, again, I'm going to go back to put the cart ahead of the horse, that the manpower is not there to maintain these. Greenmount Power, I'm not sure why, maybe you folks can reach out and find out. They had a rental sales program and they were installing these fast and furious. They were putting them out there. I know a few people that have them through their program and they abruptly stopped. I'm not sure why. I know the systems I went out and checked out that are in place. So like it's not heating like I was told. I don't know if they subbed out contractors. You have to do a proper heat loss. A $5,000 system is typically not going to heat a home. A $20,000 or $25,000 system might heat it most of the year with a proper heat loss with a tight home. Most of the historical homes in Vermont, they're not that tight. And again, part of his presentation, most people don't have $25,000 to put into a heat pump system. I don't feel like that should be my obligation as a guy that gets up and goes to work every day and have to pay for their system with a 25 cent, a 70 cents, a dollar tax per gallon.
2 cents, right? Senator McDonald?
2 cents a gallon.
No, I think Mr. James was referring to the secretary's estimate that we might see higher assessment on fuels when she did her quote unquote back of the napkin math with us a week ago.
That's bad. If you follow that, you won't do anything. Take that at face value, you might as well just go off in the corner and.
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm against this law, because Vermonters can't afford heat and oil right now at cash price of $4.59.9 a gallon is not doable.
What do you recommend?
What do I recommend as far as cleaning up the air or?
Dealing with the problem you just laid out just in one sentence.
Well, one, not to add a tax.
Well, what do you recommend that we do? Because Vermonters can't pay what they're paying for heat now. What do you recommend that we do?
Try to get the prices down.
I don't speak Russian. I don't speak Arabic.
Yeah.
So, we can't do that.
So by forcing the tax on Vermonters is definitely not going to help them.
What do you recommend we do?
Definitely not add a tax. And we can hope oil comes down, we can hope electricity comes down,
Hope is not a plan.
but you're forcing this on them.
So.
Okay.
Thank you both. We have lots of folks to hear from. So for now, we're just sort of doing a survey of things. We know there's a bigger conversation to have on all fronts. Really thank you for coming in.
Appreciate it.
And for that, I'd like to go to Vicki Haskins from Haskins Fuel. We see your tile on the screen. If you can flip on video and turn on your mic, it's your turn, Ms. Haskins.
Okay, can't seem to get my video to go.
Well, we can hear you okay.
Okay, all right, sorry.
No problem.
I'm Vicki Haskins. I own Haskins Gas in Dorset, southern part of the state. My father-in-law started the business in 1946. My husband and I purchased it in 1980, and we've grown tremendously from 75 customers to 6,000. Our customers have become our friends and family. I have a lot of concerns about their ability to be able to pay for the electricity if we get them to put the heat pumps in. We've spent the last 25 years taking electric heat out of condos and houses because they couldn't afford it. They couldn't stay warm with it, and they couldn't afford it. We put a lot of propane heaters in, furnaces, with a lot of success.
Quick question. When you were saying take the feet up, we're talking about electric resistance heating, baseboard electric.
Right, they had electric heat, right, the baseboard.
Okay, thank you.
We have people maybe that are in the middle. They're not low income, but they're not upper. And they're choosing between buying groceries and paying for fuel. What is this going to do to them and their electric bill? And some of this bill sounds like that I'm being forced to tell people they can't use as much fuel. That just doesn't seem right, that it's up to me as a dealer to tell you what you can do. Some of the burden should be on the consumer. That should be up to them. Freedom of choice. If they don't want to put a sweater on and reduce their fuel consumption, I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. I mean, I can encourage it like we always have to save energy, but I can't force them. And if somebody's just put a new heating system in, I don't know how I'm going to convince them to put a $20,000 heat pump in when what they have works fine. And what you hear is, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. And I know from experience that's, I've got a lot of people who are afraid because of all this increase on the electric infrastructure. They're buying generators because they're afraid they're not going to have electricity for just to run their lights. And we've got electric cars and all of these electric heat pumps, and they're afraid they'll be with nothing. So we put in hundreds of propane generators. The out-of-state purchasing of fuel, I'm not sure where I could purchase it that would be within the state of Vermont. A lot of my fuel comes, we have a rail siding, and a lot of our fuel comes in from Canada. I know that hasn't been addressed in there, but I'm not sure how I could stay within the state to have enough fuel for my customers. You know, we encourage people to buy local. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay in business with all of this extra cost and having to earn these credits. I mean, I'm a small business providing a service, and an additional credits and, you know, discouraging my main, what I sell, propane. And to tell people you've got to use electricity. I mean, I'm trying to get my head around it, but you know, Vermont has always been buy local, support small businesses. And to me, this feels like discrimination toward the small dealers. Because I don't know how we're going to survive with this.
So since we can't see you, I'm not sure, are you?
I got it. It's coming. I got it. It came up. Here I am.
There you are. Thank you.
Sorry.
Anything else you wanted to share with the committee?
No, I guess not. That's my spiel.
Okay, thanks very much. So
Mr. Chair, would you invite the witnesses to make some suggestions on what we should do differently than we're doing now? Or I tried the business about sweaters and hunkering down last year and was roundly castigated for the suggestion. Praying for early spring is not an answer.
well, sure. So we'll add, we've asked people sort of a basic set of questions, and we can add, I think, Senator McDowell, it's a good question, and that if people are under stress right now because of the fuel spike and the price in the last 2 years, I think part of what we're looking for is not to leave people in this current predicament. So when we talk about pennies more on fuel, I'll just express my own personal feelings on this one. It's very frustrating to see the price go up by dollars and all that money leaves, right? It's not your fault, it's not our fault, but it's a system that's out of our control entirely. So what we're trying to plot is a path out of a place where we have very little control over our costs and offer alternatives that where we will have more opportunities to save. So I think everyone agrees things like weatherization, all to the good. Question is how affordable, how do you make it affordable to weatherize? So we're looking for suggestions on how, what would you recommend? We hear your concerns, but what would you recommend that would help us get people out of the current fix? Because I feel like you and us and every Vermonter is not in a good place right now around, most of us, around our heating costs. We're not in control of them, and we'd like to see, find a way together forward out of this sort of swamp we're in at the moment. Pricing swamp, that's all I mean.
I think we need to slow it down. I feel like it's just coming like so forceful, and I just know people don't do well when you're trying to cram something down their throat. And I think I get it, but I think we need to slow it down. I think it's too soon. I think we need to have a plan, but it needs to be slowed down from the rate it's going right now.
Senator White, last question to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Gray. Thank you, Ms. Haskins. So the bill, the implementation of any program wouldn't be until 2026. Does that feel like a timeline that is too fast for you based on your comments?
I do think it is.
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
we need to look at the whole picture to be able to have infrastructure to do this before we do it. I'm concerned about the amount of electricity and how we're going to provide that at a cost that people can afford. They're going to be in the same boat as they are with the fuel prices right now, unless GMP is going to lower their rates.
So, thank you for that. I think from what we've been learning and what we've seen so far, many of the programs are designed in a way that you're total out of pocket. There may be a different shift between your electric bill and your fuel bill, but the total out of pocket will go down. So, and the last thing is we are taking testimony from all the electric companies to make sure they have the capacity to serve more electricity over the grid. And I think so far the testimony is good. So I would say if people are worried that they're not going to get enough electricity, we're working carefully with the utilities to have a legal obligation to make sure they meet that load. They have to deliver a plan every 3 years that looks 3, 5, 10, and 20 years forward with anticipated level of load to make sure they're in a position to serve it reliably, because reliability is one of the highest priorities. The 3 priorities for any electric company under law are: they have to be safe and reliable, they have to deliver at the lowest cost possible, and they need to do it in an environmentally sound way. So just wanted to share that back by way of information. And with that, thank you again. I'd like to go on to Mr. Stenger. Good morning, Mr. Stenger. I see you up there, and now your mic's on. Take it away.
Good morning, senators. I appreciate you, Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. I prepared 2.5 hours worth of testimony, and I told last night I have 6 minutes. I have a reputation for doing everything fast, so I will not disappoint. I'm going to give you 2.5 hours and 6 minutes. And Senator McDonald, you'll be pleased to know that I have a litany of solutions for you. None of them, unfortunately, are in support of S5.
I do have something. Sorry.
Yeah.
So we are on this sort of up-tempo schedule.
Good.
If you have more you want to share with us, or your written testimony today, please email it to Ms. Newman, and we can post it on our website. And we're happy to have more testimony than just what you present in a brief presentation here. So thanks. Back to you.
You can count on it. And by the way, I addressed the committee a year ago. I've changed my presentation a little bit, but the points I want to resonate and talk to are similar. So I'll try to cut right to the chase. I'm going to start for anyone that doesn't know me with a little bit of background. I'm a 31-year veteran of the fossil fuel industry. I've worked at the leadership and executive level for refiners and huge marketers. 17 years ago, I started Simple Energy Partners in West Lebanon, New Hampshire, with one oil delivery truck alongside my business partner. The two of us have created about 125 jobs in 17 years. We are a first-generation, organically grown, full-service energy provider. And what I mean by that is that although we started by delivering only heating oil, that heating oil was blended with biodiesel at levels up to 40%. This is back in 2006. We have maintained an appetite for bio blending since then. We continue to do that today. We consider ourselves experts in that field. We've added renewable propane to our appetite for renewables. We also have built a very large energy contracting business that includes plumbing, cooling, electrical services, photovoltaic installation, battery backup systems. And for the last about 12 years, we have the fastest growing part of our company has been in the area of cold climate heat pumps and hybrid electric hot water heaters. So at the risk of sounding a little bit arrogant, I'm also an expert in the electrification of energy. I will tell you that after 17 years of growing this very successful company, the majority of our revenues still come from delivered liquid fuel. About 50% of our footprint is in the state of Vermont. Our trucking company that we own, it supplies us with all of our liquid fuels. We do business, we draw product from Albany, from the state of Maine, from Massachusetts, from New Hampshire, and from Vermont. So we have a lot to say in terms of these product storage and question marks around obligated parties. Bottom line is the legislation as it exists will benefit a company like Simple Energy. As I mentioned, we install a lot of cold climate heat pumps on order of 1,000 a year. And that part of our business is growing exponentially. Although I want to just quick sidebar, I want to point out that this past year in 2022 was the first time I experienced a customer of ours wanting to remove heat pumps and replace those heat pumps with high efficiency condensing propane central heating system. And the reason for that was the unexpected expense of the year-round electric utility bills associated with a 4-head cold climate heat pump installation. So we're seeing a product life cycle in cold climate heat pumps that includes what I call a race to the bottom. And a race to the bottom is the weather, I guess, efficiency standard that the manufacturers or producers of cold climate heat pumps have to meet. It's actually a really low standard because the technology is advancing so quickly. They're getting more and more efficient at lower and lower temperatures, which is good news for anyone that lives in the Northeast. However, I can only point to very few examples where with profound, and by profound, I mean big dollar investments in weatherization, new construction, and the most sophisticated, most expensive heat pump technology, you can't heat the average home in the Northeast with electricity. On the coldest days, the design temps, the heat loss that one of my peers mentioned earlier today simply will not support it. They not only lose their efficiency, but the very best cold climate heat pumps today that can be retrofit into existing construction stop performing on days like today. And as we approach 0 degrees and beyond, it's not a linear equation when you look at the efficiency of these things. It drops precipitously and they become enormously expensive to operate. The other caveat to that is the majority of the customers that I've talked with, and customer engagement is a key part of our strategic growth. We're not hearing that people are buying these exclusively to divorce themselves from fossil fuels. There is, in full disclosure, there are people that have an appetite to want to have some price shock protection from fossil fuel, and I certainly understand that. I think that the conversation or debate in terms of what I believe my solutions are for lowering the price of fossil fuel, it is a conversation that has to occur outside of the state of Vermont. Although I would offer that as a business owner that operates in the state of Vermont, owns property in the state of Vermont, I have storage assets in the state of Vermont, and owned a business in Vermont that we subsequently closed. You could help us by making it less expensive to do business in the state of Vermont. And that's a universal statement. I operate 2 companies in both Vermont and New Hampshire. And I have experience running a company in the state of Maine. Vermont is by a wide margin more expensive for everything to run a small business. So that we can have a different conversation, but I have some very specific examples of what you could do to make it more conducive for a small business entrepreneur to operate in the state of Vermont. Let me just reference my notes because I know I'm short on time.
Out of time, actually. If we could just wrap up, that would be great.
Okay. Here's how I want to wrap up. There's a couple of things, by the way, with this House bill that you could do. I've read this thing a billion times. It doesn't look like there's a price cap on the credits, and no one knows, right? So I don't run a business by deciding to do something and then figuring out how much it's going to cost me. If I did that, that would be, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, a terrifying roller coaster. So in order to be more fiscally responsible, I got to figure out what stuff's going to cost before I do it, right? So I would suggest you put a price cap So put a 2-cent price cap. We're already paying you 2 cents a gallon for weatherization. You're welcome. Plus a penny, plus a myriad of other fees to do business in your state. Why not put a price cap on this legislation that I suspect you're all going to vote for? Secondly, I will say you have a profound headwind in the form of the labor pool available to do this business. The single biggest barrier to my growing in the state, and like I said before, I'll benefit from this by sell a lot more generators because of the anxiety about the availability of electricity. We sell a lot of heat pumps, a lot of photovoltaic, we're working with a company on a microgrid battery strategy. Some of you may be aware of it's in your state, in a part of the state that has I'm quoting the state representative now, a very unreliable power grid. If there's a vendor that wants to put a microgrid battery storage system in, they approached our company to see if we had an appetite to help with the installation because the contractor they use from Massachusetts doesn't have enough manpower to do it. My response was quick. I said, hell no. I don't have the manpower to engage in a project of that magnitude. Doesn't mean I don't want to. It just means that the barriers to me growing my business, which I've been doing consistently for 17 years in a row in Vermont, is limited by the availability of a skilled workforce. So here's a massive solution for you. Invest heavily in trades, invest heavily in training, and allow companies that are not headquartered in the state of Vermont, that you don't consider Vermont companies, to access grants for displacing the costs associated with training. Because I've gone down that road and have been denied access to state funding to train the workforce because I'm not a Vermont company. You could fix that. That would be a big benefit.
We're gonna need to stop there, but I want to just get 2 quick questions to clarify something you brought up.
Okay.
So, the cold climate heat pump that you removed, was that in New Hampshire? What state was the cold climate heat pump that you removed? And some
In Vermont. So I removed a cold climate heat pump in Vermont because in that particular case, there was an expectation from the homeowner that the heat that they had an old, outdated oil-fired system. Okay, so we retrofit in a 4-head heat pump system. The expectation at the time is that would be a 1-to-1 replacement. It's not. We tried to tell them. We said here's the performance criteria from the manufacturer. Here's what you can expect on the coldest day. Those expectations fell short from the homeowner's perspective. The solution was to leave a portion of the cold climate heat pumps in place, predominantly for the benefit of space heating and cooling, and to supplement for what we call design days with high efficiency propane. I've also seen in Vermont, because of the technology race, there are customers that have upgraded their heat pumps from 10 or 12-year-old technology that doesn't even come close to performing at freezing or below to newer sort of what we call Arctic series or higher performing next generation heat pumps. So the product life cycle is also something that needs to be carefully considered in the push for electrification, because it's not a do it once and be done. I'm sitting in our home office in West Lebanon. I have 14 cold climate heat pumps in this building. Some of them existed, but 7 of them have been replaced with newer technology because they're much more efficient at colder temps.
And one other quick last question. You referenced people installing generators. That's come up several times already. Where in my lifetime, I've never heard people worrying about the grid going down almost, other than in places with storms, like grid reliability in Vermont, other than storm related stuff, it's an incredibly high rate of service. So can you just say very briefly why you think people are worrying about grid capacity at this moment?
Well, that's a great question. I'll do my best and I'll try to be brief. You're on to me. We're seeing it predominantly it's all weather driven, not all of it, but we have adverse weather. People immediately, it piques their interest. A lot of this is driven by national news media coming from the West Coast where there's rolling blackouts or brownouts. A lot of this is, I think, a holdover from what happened in the southern part of the state, or southern part of the country, rather, a year ago, and is happening again in Texas. There's one utility in particular that overinvested in wind and solar that's now putting natural gas peakers back online. The more savvy consumers that are piped into not maybe Vermont sustainability, but the people that we're selling generators to, sorry, this is just occurring to me, a lot of them moved here either after 9/11 or during the pandemic, and they became permanent residents in the state. Those individuals, we have a pretty good footprint of them, particularly like in the Woodstock, Quechee area that my company has a big footprint in. We're selling a lot of generators in that area to people that used to be seasonal or second homeowners that are now permanent residents. So that's important.
Thank you for your information. We look forward to your written testimony. I know you have more to share. I wish we had more time today, but we're on survey mode, kind of a sample. So thanks, Mr. Stenger. For that, we're going to go on to Mr. Percy from Trent Energy, please. Good morning again. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I've listened to a lot of testimony up to this point. We're a northeast-based company. We employ a little over 100 people. We sell heating oil, we sell kerosene, we sell gasoline, we sell diesel, and we sell propane. We have in the vicinity of just shy of 15,000 customers. Last I knew, a couple of years ago, we were the second largest fuel assistance dealer in the state of Vermont. Up where we are in the Northeast Kingdom, we have a location in Derby, we have a location in Morrisville, we have a location in Richford and Lyndonville. So we cover the whole Northeast Kingdom. We have a big clientele of fuel assistance people that we work widely with the weatherization company. We're on the emergency heat council, or when they call us, we have 24 hours to get people new furnaces or what have you. I see these people out there that we put new furnaces in, they don't have money to maintain them, to even clean them or take care of them. Talk about a heat pump. You put a heat pump in their house, they aren't going to have the money to clean them, take care of them, or even think about what they do, or even be able to heat the house without a fossil fuel. It's one of those things where the heat pump industry has come a long ways. We've been installing heat pumps for 13 years. And the heat pumps we put in back then are nothing compared to what they are today. But today's standard of heat pumps will still not heat a house, especially in our area where a lot of these homes are homes, they're old homes, they're not well insulated, and it doesn't work. For me to send somebody out there on a no heat call, I'm not going to send them out in this climate. So that person better have some backup heat. As far as your question with the generators, I went 3 days back years ago without heat or water or anything in this climate. I won't be without a generator for that simple reason. If you ever experience that, it's not a fun situation.
Sure.
I had no alternate heat.
Yeah. I remember 1996 with the big ice storm.
Yeah.
6 days without power.
The clientele that we have, that we work with, we're in the depressed area, and we don't have people with a lot of excess money to go out and put heat pumps in. You put heat pumps in. We did a transition for a local library, okay, and they wanted to go all green, and so we put money towards it because it's a local thing, and that's what fuel companies do. They try to put money back into the community. These people are out there and giving us a living, and we try to put back into the community. And they didn't want to put any alternate heating. Well, after we put the heat pumps in, we talked them into putting propane space heater in for helping the heat. 2 months into the winter, they said, we can't afford to run these. Last night in the paper, and not to get out of the subject, last night in the paper, Spartan Electric's gonna raise their rates 20%. It just does not work with our climate where we are in the Northeast Kingdom. My suggestion to fix the problem, instead of pushing all this money towards heat pumps, give some incentives to put more efficient heating systems in. I can go to Derby Line, I can go down the main streets, and there's still heating systems that are out there 30, 40 years old. And there's nothing incentivizing these people to put more efficient fossil fuels in. The fossil fuels have come so far in the last 30 years. The environment that we are one small piece of the country of the carbon footprint. We're trying to save the world. Let's take it a little step to a time. Technology is advancing so fast. And just like these other gentlemen have said, the workforce out there, I've had signs out all summer long to hire people to come in here because we have to train them. There's not skilled people out there. If there is, they're working. The workforce that we have in Vermont is my age, 50 and above. I go to the schools and try to get kids interested in a trade. Don't come to the door. You know what? They're leaving the state of Vermont. Too expensive to live here. We need to listen to the people. My problem with this whole thing is we aren't educating the public. They don't even know what's going on down here. And we're going to put a burden on these people by putting more taxes. I agree with this gentleman here that says put a cap on it. If you're going to pass this, 70 cents doesn't work. Put a cap on it. You can put a cap on it today. It cannot exceed. I'm all for saving the climate, believe me. I got grandkids, I got great grandkids. They need a future. I think we're all on the same page here. But let's do it realistically. Let's not put the cart before the horse. I think we're throwing something out there that Vermonters, we're going to shove them out of Vermont. We don't have a workforce as it is. And Chittenden County, they're booming. Go to the Northeast Kingdom, see how much they're booming there. Have you gone to the grocery store? See what the expenses are going to the grocery store. See what the added costs are. I have over 100 employees, and a lot of these employees are making a good wage, and they're living week to week. I can't absorb any more as a company without passing it on to these people. So thank you for allowing me to speak. My suggestion is don't try to get rid of fossil fuels. Let's work with the people that have them, because up in our neck of the woods, we need it. Incentivize them to put more efficient stuff in to cut back on the carbon footprint. And don't push the people that we have put heat pumps in for, they're using them for air conditioning. I just built a new house. I put heat pumps around my house. They ain't running. I'll run them in spring and fall. Mild climate, love it. Not in the dead of winter.
So Mike, that question?
Thank you, Chairman Bray, and thank you, Mr. Piercy, so much for coming in today. So you raised the point around inability to pay and cost raising, and I appreciate that concern. It's something that's really close to my heart as someone who grew up low income, relied on LIHEAP, and also was very cold still. So what makes me have a lot of solace in this bill, as you speak to your customers, is that when we compare the price volatility of heat pumps to any fossil fuel, it's significantly lower. And I'd love to have you leave with one of the price comparison sheets that we have around cost, because what I see here is that those fossil fuels are increasing at a far greater rate and are far more price volatile, and that makes me concerned. So I'm wondering if you could describe a little bit how you see the industry becoming less volatile or lowering the price without some kind of regulatory step in to help people move away from it.
My feeling to that whole thing is I have no control over what fuel prices are coming at us. We're a retail company.
Yeah.
The only thing I can see is with the electric grid, that I have good friends that work for the power company. They say our electric grid cannot sustain what you folks want to do with electricity. So what's going to happen is they're going to have to put a major amount of money into that electric grid. Well, how do they recoup that cost?
That's a
Pass it on to us. So the public utility is going to go out there, they're going to spend $2 billion. That's what I've heard in the news and stuff. Who's paying for that?
I so appreciate that, and I would actually also posit Velco, who is our transmission line folks. They have whole reports on how they are making it work and will make it work. And I'm happy to, before you leave today, give you one of the transmission reports, which gave me a lot of solace in knowing that there isn't a major increase we're going to see in cost of electricity as we transition. But it's a very good point you're making. Thank you.
So, with all the taxes that the fuel companies put out, we're paying 3 cents a gallon for every gallon of fuel goes into the roads and stuff. How are they making all
for
this
transportation?
up? For transportation
Yes.
and stuff. How are they going to make all that up? As far as you want to get rid of fossil fuels completely.
Yes.
Well, that's a great question. And transportation is actually the biggest challenge we have, because it's the most fuel used, the most source of pollution. But this bill just sticks to heating.
25 years ago, I've been at Fred's for 37 years. This is my 37th year. Probably 25 years ago, we were being incentivized to put in fossil fuels and take out electric heat.
Yeah.
And here we are going backwards. And I think we are going backwards for the simple reason is, why aren't we setting out pilot jobs where we can find out what the cost is, and is it able to sustain what you folks want to achieve? So if I came in here and said to all of you representatives, we're going to take all your fossil fuels away from you today, figure it out. Well, that's basically what's happening with the public out there now. We're going to tell them, we want you to get rid of all your fossil fuel, put it in heat pumps, we want you to go electricity, and we're going to incentivize them to do that. We don't know what the electric rates are going to be 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. If somebody wants to put a ceiling on it and say, okay, this is what it's going to be 10 years down the road, fine. We have something to look forward to, but they aren't going to do that. Well,
we can't put ceilings on stuff that's for sale.
I understand that. But that's what I'm saying. We're wide open to other industries that, we have no control over what's going to happen with power prices or fuel or anything. We're buying stuff from other industries.
Mr. Chair.
Last question to you, Senator.
You are correct that there was a big push to electrify people's homes and to heat with it. That was not done by government.
Mm-hmm.
That was done by electric companies who, under the law, earned more money the more electricity they sold. That's not the law today.
Mm-hmm.
Today, they earn more money for how they help their customers avoid having to use electricity. That's the new law. But you are correct that there was a time when in this state, we encouraged people citizens were encouraged to buy more electricity, which was not a wise thing. We were the most expensive electricity in New England. Today, we're next to the lowest because we changed the law and discouraged.
Well, that's gonna go back to, we're gonna be using more electricity now, and then we're gonna be at their mercy as far as price increases or what have you. We're putting in heat pumps in homes that people never had air conditioning. That's what they use it. They're using it for air conditioning, and that's what I'm finding with majority of the people. I had one customer that went out there and they put in solar panels. Because then they said, well, we want to go all green, and they put in heat pumps. Well, she got her light bill. She can't run her heat pumps all day long because the solar panels aren't covering her heating costs. She has an old farmhouse, exactly, and she can't heat her house. She calls me up and says, I can't get the house above 60. Well, I told you, you have a boiler downstairs. I have an incident yesterday where I had two houses. They're using a heat pump. They couldn't heat the house. And yesterday wasn't that cold. They couldn't heat the house. They turned their baseboard heat on. Two places. It was an older house. Two places of the baseboard was froze because there's no heat going through the pipes. So
So I said it was last question, but I'm getting, my understanding is that the recommendations from heating contractors is not to remove a fossil fuel system when adding heat pumps. And so are these cases that you're talking about that are clear problems, have people taken out their fossil fuel system instead of keeping it as a backup and adding heat pumps for however much of the heating season they can cover?
So
Those heating systems, oil-based or propane, is gone.
some of them, we try to, go against that for the simple reason is they're not going to be happy when they can't heat the house.
Yeah.
There again, going back to incentivizing them with more efficient systems. Okay. Would I put a heat pump in if somebody was going to give me money to put towards a more efficient boiler to cut my heating costs? Okay. Some of these houses burn 2,000 gallons of oil a year. And we put heating systems in that have saved them up to 50%. Well, right off the bat, you've cut the carbon footprint, you've cut the cost for that customer, and the customer is still comfortable.
Right. So thank you very much for coming in. With that, we'll go to Manny Fletcher, please. Mr. Fletcher.
Good morning. I put down on paper what I wanted to say so I didn't get off on a tangent and take up too much of your time. My name is Manny Fletcher. I'm operations manager at Files Brothers, which is a propane company in Orwell, Vermont. I'm also the current president of the Vermont Fuel Dealers Association. I've been in the propane industry in Vermont for over 39 years. I started as a delivery driver, became a service tech and installer, and I've been in management for the past 22 years. I've seen the evolution of the propane industry in which propane appliances have gone from 70% efficient to 95 plus, which is ultra clean burning. That's a reduction in fuel that we're on board with. We feel we've done our share as far as that. I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm here to urge you to stop the attempt to pass S5, the Affordable Heat Act. I applaud you for wanting to save the planet. However, this bill will do nothing but create hardship for most of the rural Vermont residents. According to the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources' most recent report, if Vermonters reduce their greenhouse gas emissions to zero by 2050, which is the goal, the total reduction between now and then would be just over 100 million metric tons. That's equivalent to 1 day of the world's emissions. 1 day we're talking about saving. Countries like China, which account for 30% of the world's emissions, are projected to increase their greenhouse gas emissions by 175 million tons per year. They have plans to build 200 new coal-fired power plants to meet their growing electricity needs. The Affordable Heat Act would force residents of the already cleanest state in America to stop using oil and propane. This is the equivalent of putting a Band-Aid on a bullet through the heart. It's going to make you feel good about trying, but it's not going to make a difference. And that's what this bill is about. We can talk about price, who's going to pay it, whether we go all electric or whether we keep fossil fuels. It's going to be expensive in Vermont to heat your home. It always has been. I remember as a youth in the mid-70s, I grew up right here in Montpelier, and there was an energy crisis. We were going to run out. We didn't have enough. Prices were high. There was shortages. There was rationing. If you wanted gasoline, you could only get it in a car with a last number of your license plate. If it was odd, you could get it on an odd day. If it was even, you could get it on an even day. Luckily, we had 2 cars. Each one had a different number. My father could get it every day. I got off track, didn't I? Okay. We thought that there was going to be no fuel. We thought it was going to run out. And every house in Vermont back then was built with electric heat, electric water heaters. And that was going to save us. I spent the majority of my time in the mid-80s removing the electric heat, removing the electric water heaters, because the grid could not handle the electric load and the rates had skyrocketed. Green Mountain Power purchased a propane company for the purpose of changing customers from electric to propane to free up the grid, because the demand was so high. To quote Yogi Berra, this is like deja vu all over again. This is what we feel going all electric is going to create. The recent storm around Christmas left a huge amount of Vermonters without power, some for 3 to 4 days or more. It's a reminder that we cannot rely on electric alone.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
So I've had, it's turned out I've had oil and propane pretty much every place I've lived or rented. And they all require electricity. So I honestly have this genuine question. When I keep hearing about electricity going out, it's a problem for a heat pump. Isn't it also a problem for an electric?
We have products that don't need electricity to burn on propane.
And we have, but what percent of the market uses electric-free appliances? I'm just not familiar with them, so I'm looking to.
We have a large amount of Vermonters that are off-grid that rely on propane for everything. Okay. We have a lot of people that will put what we call wood simulated stove. It looks like a wood stove, but it runs on gas. Doesn't require electricity. It's a backup in case the electric goes out. We also have a lot of propane-fired generators, on-demand generators that come on to produce the electricity for your house when it goes out.
Okay.
Our fear is the more you try to move to all electric, people are going to still have their propane generators, but you're not going to have enough companies to service them. You're going to force the smaller guys, like the guys in this room, out of business. They're going to be bought up by other ones. There's not going to be enough supply and product where you've got the demand. So if the power goes out for a week, there's just not going to be enough people to keep those tanks full. So even though you have a propane generator and the price is going to be $35 a gallon at that point to try to maintain the business, it's just it's supply and demand. The less you're going to have as a business, the more you're going to have to pay for it, to pay your employees, to keep your vehicles running, to pay your taxes, everything. That's the issue. You're right. You need electricity for most of the thing, but there are the generators. There are a lot of appliances. Like I said, we have people that use propane for refrigerators, freezers, lights, heat, everything. And those are the people that are going to suffer. They're going to pay a lot more because they're not going to be able to get the grid to get up to where they are. And we do have a lot of customers with these stoves. Chimney Sweep sells them, installs them. Several a day we're hooking up, just because, especially things like what happened over Christmas. People that did go without heat for a day or two are looking for a source that doesn't require electricity to put in as a backup.
Sorry, I took you off your testimony, but I needed to ask that question because we've heard about it and just need to know.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying we don't need electricity. We definitely need electricity, but forcing our industry has felt like we're the punching bag in the state. Every time you need money for anything, you come to us. You want to charge us more. I won't give you that look. We're paying 2 cents. We have to pay 15 cents for fuel assistance. We have to pay. It seems like every time we want to give someone the opportunity to make their house tighter or warmer or whatnot, it comes down to us. All the people that do use electric, I don't see Green Mountain Power paying, you know, they can't, they're regulated, so there is no adding fees to them.
So I think they do have fees, but we'll stick to our stuff here.
We receive calls from our customer base all the time about the Affordable Heat Act. They're all in fear that their fuel is gonna go up, or they're gonna be forced to switch to electric for heat and hot water. We suggest that they contact their representative. We suggest they contact you. A lot of people don't feel comfortable doing that. They're afraid that their voice isn't gonna be heard. They want us, their fuel supplier, to fight for them. That's what we're here for today, is to fight for our customers. I urge you to get outside of Montpelier and Chittenden County and go and talk and listen to some of the people. Go to Addison, Bridport, Shoreham, Benson, Orwell. I know.
We all
Listen.
live there.
Yeah.
We all
Are you
live-
listening to the people there? Because they're all telling us they are not for this. I really think we need to listen to the people who put you here. As I mentioned earlier, over the Christmas holiday, the storm put a large number of people without electricity. I was on call that weekend answering the emergency calls. I had over 239 calls from people that wanted to make sure they had backup heat, and they had propane for their generators to keep going. And every one of them, to my knowledge, was kept safe and warm by our services. I thank you for this time, and I'm gonna have to leave here shortly to get back to work, because this is gonna be the coldest day of the year, and we've got a lot of customers to make sure that we keep happy and warm.
Well, thank you for coming in. I'm just, we're gonna go to Casey Coda, please. And while we're making the switch, I'll reiterate, this is not about trying to pick winners or losers, where we feel like the current industries bringing heat to people is an essential part of the claim for us. So I'm just gonna say thank you again for being here. Helps us learn. That's the point for us. So Mr. Coda, to you, please.
Good morning. Thank you for having us here. My name is Casey Coda, third generation owner of Coda & Coda. We've been around 82 years. We're seventh generation Vermonters, and we've always been conservationists at heart. Our goal is to help our customers stay warm in the most fuel efficient, the most cost effective way possible. Coda & Coda, as I said, is 82 years old. And as technology has changed over the years, we have helped our customers. So back in the 70s, the average fuel used in an old Vermont farmhouse was about 1,700 gallons a year, is what it used to use. Today, that number is under 700 gallons a year. And your question would be, well, you know, there must have been some amazing law that was passed that made that happen.
I don't think we did.
Right. So there wasn't. And what happened was competition, technology got better. And we as providers want to give the best product possible to our customers to ensure that they can heat their home, save money, so that we continue to be in their lives in the future by selling something that works. And my concern is that as we move forward in this bill, this will hurt our neighbors, the people of my community, with a crippling effect, because we talk about heat pumps and whether they're efficient or not knowing what the cap is going to be on what this potential cost added is going to be. That is stressful. Stressful for me, because our goal is we want to treat all of our customers as if they're our grandmother. That's our company motto, right? You want to be the hero of the story where you help save that person's Social Security money so that they can heat their home and you can keep them warm, or maybe you save the Christmas party where all the friends were coming over and the heat was out, where you were able to get it back on, or the power went out and the generator came on. And so we want to be that hero of the story. My concern is other people mentioned that people will be forced to make hard choices as costs increase. I don't want them to have to choose between whether to have heat or food or whatever.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Do you deliver biofuels and
We do
what, like, how much of a part of your business is that? How is that changing? Because one of the things the bill allows for is, we've talked a lot about so far about coal heat pumps and,
So yes,
the bill also says you can, deliver biofuels. That's the,
So we do
appliances
deliver-
plus fuels. Sorry.
yes, we deliver a portion of biofuels. Hopefully, moving forward in the future, that biofuels will be more readily available. We're hoping that it becomes a national mandate that all heating oil has a component of biofuel in it, because I think it makes good sense. It keeps the fuel bought in the United States, right? Because it's grown here, produced here. That's important, not only nationally, but I think we as Vermonters who are conservationists at heart. And so I think that makes logical sense.
Sure. And
We've been doing it since 2000 in different components, and we've tried it. There have been some stumbles along the way, but we understand what is a mix and a blend that works well for what we're doing.
yeah, how far along are we? B20, B5?
So currently, right now, most of the dealers are selling at a B10 rate. Some of it's B5. The tough part is the supply chains, being able to get the product everywhere. As one of our speakers is coming after me, Peter can attest to it. Peter's been doing biofuels for a long time, and he can give you more details on sort of supply chain flows, but also, you know, that's something we battle with everything as we go through.
Chairman White.
Thank you, Chairman Bray. So one important thing that we learned from Oregon, who has introduced a clean fuel standard, which is not thermal, but on transportation, is that they saw a reduction in the price of biofuels because they were able to address those supply chain challenges as people had a comfortability with knowing what the demand would be.
Right.
So I'm wondering if you see the market just lowering biodiesel prices, or actually like what we saw in Oregon, where when they did introduce a performance standard, it did go down.
Well, yeah, I think that, again, the more that we can produce locally, you know,
Yeah.
regionally in this country, that will give us a greater opportunity. When you have a national mandate, more will be produced. There might be an oversupply at some point, right? And as we know, supply and demand helps move the market a little more, besides more. But I mean, that's a reality of why we're at where we are today.
Yeah.
So knowing that if we can produce more, incentivize farmers to continue to farm and not turn them into developments, you know, that's important. The American farmers are the backbone of this country, right next to the local oil men and women. So we're the ones that keep the country running. And that's a reality. You know, one of the things that I wanted to mention is that, you know, we talked about heat pumps, and I have very similar stories as well. We picked up 4 customers in November, which was odd to me. There was a lady that was sold a bill of goods that the heat pump was going to keep her house warm. She had no other source of heat to it. Couldn't get the house above 40, and this was in November, and we had some cold mornings. And that bothered me, because I wouldn't do that to my grandmother. I couldn't do that. And so my worry is the people that are out there installing these that are non-fuel providers don't understand the complexity of making sure people have heat and something that's reliable to do that. I go in the grocery store every week. Sometimes it's once a day because I forgot something like the rest of us. But in doing that, I see my customers every day. I have to look them in the eye and know that I serve them properly. I sold them something that I know is going to work, that I know is going to save them money and help them to stay warm in the worst times, right? Our goal is to make sure nobody freezes. And we know as a fact that more people die from cold weather than they do from warm weather. And that's why what we do, we take what we do seriously. I'm already prepared to work all weekend long In fact, as soon as I'm done here, I'm gonna use the restroom and then I'm headed, right? I gotta get back to help everybody out. One of the things that I worry as we move forward is I think people need a choice, right? I think that's what makes this country great is that we have choices. We're allowed to make them in our own home, how we vote, what we believe for religion or not believing in a religion. We're able to do that in our own homes by mandating certain choices of what we can do in our homes. That concerns me. I think the American people are smart. They can make very good choices for themselves. They obviously voted you all here, so they obviously made good choices, right? Because you take this seriously. I feel the same way. I want my customers to be able to make the best choice for them and their family. What is financially reasonable for them? It might be electric, it might be pellets, it might be heating oil, it might be propane, it might be something we don't even know that's out there yet. I want them to make that decision. We'd like to encourage them to do that. Of all the heat pumps that we've installed, I've told all the customers we will not take your heating system out. I'm not going to do it. If you want your heating system out, you're going to have to pay somebody else to do that. I can't do that. In good conscience, I can't do that because I'm going to see you at the grocery store. And if I froze your family up or potentially saw that you destroyed your home because frozen pipes, that's tens of thousands of dollars, depending on the house. The other concern I have is, and we all should remember about heat pumps, there are a lot of mobile homes in Vermont, right? Dennis talked about it in his area. We have tons where we are. Water pipes run through the heat ducts in a lot of these mobile homes, or they're connected to it. And they run underneath the mobile home. That's where the water lines run. If you start to put heat pumps in, there's no longer heat running through those heat ducts. People will be without water. You will freeze mobile homes up. You'll have broken pipes, which then as the pipes break, they hit the floorboards get wet, floor buckle. We may have forced them out of their home because of certain things that we think are best for them. To put that in a mobile home, it's going to be very difficult because they're very long. And to be able to get them a good balanced heat where the hot air furnace was able to do that in a very efficient way. And most of those mobile homes really only use anywhere between, in our area, 3 to maybe 450 gallons a year. And that's impressive. I know you all have a question is, what is my solution? Let me find that piece of paper. What is my plan to fix it? Global warming or climate change? I think it's imperative for dealers to continue to sell the most fuel efficient and reliable heating systems on the planet. And we've been doing that for years. Obviously, I gave you scripture of how 1,700 gallons down to 700 gallons, and it's getting even lower every day. Continue to teach the customer how to maximize the efficiencies in their home, whether that's replacing their windows and doors, insulating. Anytime you have a remodeling project, you better put insulation in. Right? Get rid of those old newspapers that are stuck in the old farm walls. And if we continue to do this on the same path that we've been doing for the last decades, in 30 years, that consumption will be cut in half again, if not more. This will mean that people will save money. Their houses will still be warm the same way they used to always be. But that's not going to require any regulations or new laws or new things that we have to follow. And I think that's a great way for us all to move forward. So whatever the best systems are out there for people, let them make that choice. Make sure that if we do try and move forward with this plan, which I'm concerned for my neighbors and the people I love and care about, that we realize there will be a tax. Somehow we have to pay for this plant. Whether we think we're passing it down the chain to the wholesalers, it eventually comes to you, the consumer. You will be paying more, regardless of what the tax is, where it goes, we'll be paying more. We want to keep our fuel, the cost of our fuel affordable. When it's more expensive, we don't make more money, we make less money. Right? But we want low cost of fuel so people can afford to heat their homes, to do it in a way that one is environmentally conscious, right? That's important to us, that we save fuel, but we do it that they actually can stay warm all the time. I appreciate your time. I appreciate everybody else who spoke before us. I think it's important to have this dialogue. I do hope in the future, the fuel industry, which accounts for heating 60% to 70% of the homes in Vermont, has a better representation besides one person. If we're 60% of the households, we probably should have a higher proportion of people that help add to the discussion. We've been doing really well for the last 100 years. To cut them out of the equation, I think that's dangerous. If we were coming up with a new flying car, we should probably keep the people involved who know how cars are made, how transportation's done, distribution, and how to get those to the public. We wouldn't cut them out. We shouldn't cut us out as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Peter Bourne, Warmth Energy. While we're transitioning, I would say this hearing, plus Mr. Toda's steady presence in the building and other hearings outside the building, I just want to make sure anyone watching knows that we're not cutting anybody out, and we're listening hard, both here in hearings and in the grocery store, just like you. Okay.
I work at a grocery store.
Thanks very much for coming in.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys, ladies.
Mr. Moore, good morning.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, everybody. So I've got a lot. I'm going to try to read through it. Well, unfortunately, read it rather than spell from memory. And a few additive things came up as we're talking this morning. But thank you very much. So Peter Bourne, Bourne Energy. Bourne Energy's been in business for over 75, 76 years. I've been there 50 years. Second generation, my son is working on the third. We have about 17,000 active accounts. I personally have been on the petroleum cleanup fund for 10 to 15 years. I've been on the Morsel Water and Light Board for 23 years. I have been, I retired from that. Master plumber, licensed electrician, LP and oil certified, EPA 608, and commercial aid driver's license. So basically what I'm saying, yes, I know what the trench looks like. I know what the customer looks like. I used to deliver back when there was pop burners and people lived in one room with a light bulb and a pop burner. And I delivered to those people in 55-gallon drums. Just, I've seen, unfortunately, feel like I see history repeating itself here to some degree. We are a company that we deliver wood pellets, bulk and bagged. We deliver bulk wood pellets throughout the state of Vermont.
I might have got it.
They're produced mostly in North Carolina, Vermont, and then as well in New York and Canada, depending where the quality of the product is.
Like, I'm waiting so freaking long, my phone's dying while I'm doing it.
Mr. Beauregard.
Yeah,
You're unmuted.
Mr. Beauregard, I think your microphone is on.
There we go.
Sorry.
Good.
Yes.
So we deliver wood pellets. We've been doing that for about 10 years, and as I say, both pellets throughout the state of Vermont. Over the last 3 years, we've installed about 1,000 heat pumps. Again, as one previous person previously said, most of that originally for air conditioning, but we have and continue to put those in. Basically, for reference point, we're seeing a two-head heat pump anywhere from $10,000 to $12,000. A single head, $5,000 to $8,000 is what we're seeing for install figures for those kind of units. Biofuel, we've been doing biofuel for 10 to 15 years. We buy it at B99, we do our own blending. We've been selling anywhere from B2 to B20. Right now, we're doing a B20 to all our customers. It's not a selective choice. It is what you're going to get. That has created less service problems and much more, which we're really pleased how it's working. But in that, we also have about 80 customers that burn straight B99. Now, we have a very segregated audience. We really have to bulletproof these. But we have many homes or customers that are burning B99 without, so they're not using fossil fuel of any sort to heat their home. So there's these alternatives, we want you to understand they're there and they're doable. Over the last 10 years, 12 years, excuse me, we've offset 2 million gallons of fossil fuel with biofuel to all our customers. We could have used more depending on price and availability. We're also investing in a conversion kit to allow our heavy trucks to run on B99 in the winter. We're reading about this in the central Midwest, and so that we can burn B99 in temperatures like this to run our fleet, opposed to the fossil fuel that we historically do. Any legislation we ask needs to be open to new products, not just what we know today, but you have to leave some room in there for what's coming down the pike. We don't know, none of us in this room know what's going to be available down the road. The renewable propane needs to be in there. These are the sort of things that we, as the people in the trenches, in the trucks, know what will work. I appreciate everybody's concerns here, but when it comes down to it, we're the poor buggers out there trying to keep the grandmothers warm. So it's really important that we have seen equipment that we have stopped using because the serviceability was intolerable. And so just be aware of that, please. Weatherization needs to be available to everybody. Everybody should not be a monetary level to it. It needs to be done. 100% electrification puts all the power of every individual Vermonter's financial, home comfort, and security of their home in the hands of one entity. Their local utility will have total control over their home energy costs, with no competitive market to keep them competitive. The fact that a local utility cannot lose a customer is a far distant approach to the competitive marketplace that I work in. Every one of us in this room could take a customer from somebody else, from each other, if we're in the service area we want to be at. A utility, you can be as angry as you want with them. You're not changing your utility. You still have to deal with it. So service and a customer approach, the desperation at 2 in the morning, we're the guys that get those. In relation to the power question you had about when the grid goes down, majority of the heating systems that we service run on 110 volt, a very small, simple generator. Put it on your wheelbarrow, wheel it out in your driveway, run a cord. It's not a big thing where you take a heat pump, you got 220, you got a different animal to work with. And when it comes to the utilities and putting in the heat pumps and like that, well, it's recognized utilities cannot lose money. They were required to do it, but they cannot lose money. They are guaranteed a rate of return. None of us that are in the energy business that we're in are in a guaranteed a rate of return. If we screw up, the bank's on our back. And so when you look at what's going on, the risk that we individuals here have taken, recognize we did it for the best of the customer, the best of business. We have to be competitive all the time. Trust me, that's how we lose customers or how we gain them. The weather we're seeing right now, the fuel prices we talk about, oil and propane prices, you're right, they go up, they've been higher than hell. But we've also seen cheaper than a gallon of water in the last 10 years. Electric rates continue to go up. I'm hearing 10% as an average, many utilities, but they never go down. If they go down, it's like 1 or 2%. It's not what we're seeing here. We're already seeing oil prices for next year being lower than they were this year. Now, one more, who knows what's going to throw it off, could be all changed by the time I walk out of this room. But the point being, it will elicit. And so when we see biofuels tend to follow the energy prices. That's how they're basically, as we're seeing the matrix right now. So, and as we talk about the grid, and it seems to me, and I don't mean to counter you, Senator Gray, but in the last couple of summers, at least once, we've had a public request to reduce electric consumption in the summer. And this is why you're seeing people doing it in the winter, because they're seeing all these heat pumps going in. And why is this, to expect this demand to not affect the wintertime load? Nobody's comfortable saying that that's going to be, we're okay. We're not comfortable with that.
Sure. Just a quick note. So those, from the talking utility executives, the answer we're hearing about those requests to curtail use is all about cost. Because it's not that there's
it's a transmission cost.
It's not a capacity issue. It's that they're going to have to buy for that marginal high peak, and that cost of that electricity on the open market is going to be high. So that's going to roll through and just drive costs up customers. So it's, anyway, it's a try to save everyone money issue, not a, we can't get the power to you issue.
Well, but
Thus
again,
far.
coming back to that, because we have two issues we're trying to resolve here. One's the carbon and the other, the affordability. And so we have to make these two, and these are almost opposing magnets. So we really have to work on this to recognize that, you know, what we see in the trenches and what you're understanding and hearing at this table may not totally align.
Sure.
The one thing we also want to be aware of is we have to have electricity, no question about it. So over Christmas, over 30 million gallons of diesel fuel were used in the Northeast to support the grid. And I expect that very similar scenario is playing out right now. So the fact that the dirt is in somebody else's backyard doesn't mean the dirt isn't being disturbed. So we have to, when we look at it, we talk about utilities have to have a renewable portfolio, which is great. I'm glad they do. But when it hits a fan, they got to get it wherever they can get it. And that's what happens, and that's where we're at. So if we look at this and going forward and trying to come up with a plan that will come together nicely, we have to recognize what we're seeing and what we're hearing out there, and how do we help you make that work?
Thank you.
I'm really hoping Vermont can be a poster child of what can be done in a comprehensive plan. I think that you're willing to listen to us, and even though we may not agree, and what at least listening to what our concerns are, what our real life experiences are, will be help you get there, because we as Vermonters are the most creative buggers there are around. We'll come up with a way. You give us some guidelines to work from, we can make it work. But give us guidelines that are workable, because we have the skill sets. Dakota family, 80 some odd years, Bourne's over 75 years. We didn't stay here. We've been through a lot of stuff, and we've managed to succeed and continue to grow. But we've had to do it in understanding what the rules were going to be that we're working with. And many of us recognize that this is bottom line. If we screw it up, we're gone. Utilities screw up, they come back for a rate increase. Agriculture was mentioned earlier. Please, if there's a way to put agriculture into this program to help. I realize it's not your committee, but as you guys talk amongst yourselves, hugely important, hugely important. One last thing, we have done, I'm leaving copies here for the committee. Please, this is an informal survey done by Lawrence. The questions are there, the answer there. We've sent it out and all the details on top, but it helped give you a sense. We service the northern 8 counties of Vermont. We go from Chittenden County to Essex County. So much like Mr. Percy mentioned, we see the economic dynamics changes from one side of the state to another. So when we're talking about what we're seeing out there, what people are trying to hit that affordability and meet the goals. This is not going to be an easy road to hope, I can assure you that. But thank you very much for your time this morning. Happy to answer any questions you have, or try to at least get you the answers if I don't have them myself. But we appreciate what you're doing.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming in. I think at this point, we know how to reach you. I'm sure there's going to be more conversation after today, but as I say, we're sort of in a survey mode, trying to see a lot of.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, let's go to Judy Karanovich, owner of Procter Gas. Good morning, Ms. Karanovich. Thanks for your patience, and thanks for joining.
Good morning. And it's Taranovich.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I wish I'd gone first because everybody stole my testimony. So if I sound a little disjointed, I apologize. I've been scratching and rewriting as I've been listening. I am Judy Taranovich. I am owner of Procter Gas, which is a 57-year-old company in Rutland County. I am vice president, of the FDA. I'm chairman of the Propane Gas Association of New England, and I am also Vermont State Director for the Nationals, of which I got back a little late last night. So I had hoped to testify in person, but I succumbed to the jet lag and decided to do it via Zoom. Senator Ray, I first want to address a comment you made at the very beginning about a lot of states are engaging in this climate action. There are actually 21 states that have opted for freedom of choice for their energy, with more to come in 2023. So as much as there is a push for electrifying everything, it's not in every state. Some have realized the importance of all energies at the table. And if you remember when I testified last year, that was one of my main comments, that it's not that I don't believe in electricity. I absolutely do. But I believe there needs to be a seat at the table for all energy, for our energy security, especially as a lot of our energy comes from a Canadian company who, as they increase their usage, I'm afraid we will see less electric coming in our direction. I'm not going to bore you with lots of numbers, because I know we're also about 40 minutes into this testimony, and the mind can only retain what the seat can endure. So I'm going to keep it really brief, as a lot of what I wanted to say has been talked about. I've become a little confused as to what this testimony is, because I thought, it being a clean heat directive, we seem to have morphed into a lot more on pricing. And if we are going to discuss pricing and talk about electric being cheaper than our energy, that is absolutely not true, because right now the majority of your electric comes from our energy. So if prices go up for fuel oil and propane and natural gas, they will likewise go up for the electric. With that said, we are driven by customers versus the electric company being driven by the PUC. So the PUC and Green Mountain Power will be able to very easily raise their rates with no ability to eject, as opposed to our industry, who has to compete against several other companies, and our margins will shrink because we will not be able to take all the increases. I want to kind of go back to what my original testimony was. And we have gone from the Global Warming Solutions Act to the Clean Heat Standard to the Portable Heat Act, and just changing the name doesn't change what it is. In my opinion, it's the Unaffordable Heat Act, because it's going to cost us so much money. And it's not even an Unaffordable Heat Act. It will be an unaffordable heat mandate. Make no mistakes, you can change the wrapping on the box, you can change the bow, but the package that's on the inside will not change. And people will not only dislike what the gift is, they are going to be wanting to exchange it. In other parts of the world, propane is not only seen as an important energy source, but it saves lives as well, while the US continues to demonize us. Adding a tax of approximately 70 cents a gallon and spending millions a year to reduce the world's carbon impact by one day may seem to work for you guys, but that math doesn't work for me. And with all due respect, I won't help you do it. I won't help you put me out of business. Procter Gas is a third generation family run business. Like I said, we've been around for 57 years, and I would rather close than destroy what we have built through hard work and pride in who we are and what we do. But please know, if I close, because I am the smallest company here, right? I have 12 employees. I'm limited with my resources, and I can't do what some of these larger companies do. So my gallons will go, or my business will go away, but my gallons will not. Bigger companies will absorb those gallons, and you still won't have accomplished what you want to accomplish. Who in their right mind would agree to sell a product that they don't believe in, i.e. the heat pumps, so they can earn credits that will in turn be given to another private company that will ultimately reduce the fuel I sell and put me out of business? How convenient is this plan for you? that we basically agree to come alongside you and help you put ourselves out of business. If you are going to bankrupt and harm the most vulnerable in Vermont, you can do it without my help. The unaffordable heat mandate is a bad deal all the way around. And my only advice to you is to get that blanket. You're going to need it. That's really all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Arnovich. Did I get it right this time?
You did. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry if I sound a little frustrated, but I love what I do. And the thought of being put out of business is very emotional to me.
And I'll say it again, but it may not, you can just count on it. Speaking on behalf of the committee, we're not interested in putting anyone out of business. We're interested in helping the way we heat and cool, it's turning out to be as well, evolve over time so that we do it in cleaner, more and affordable ways. So,
but we are at 2.9% carbon intensity. We are already the cleanest state in the nation. The storm that is upon us today has come from the Midwest. Okay, we can't control the air that moves across our state. And unless you put a dome over this state, you are not going to change the air we breathe. You're not going to do it. And we're clean. We're already clean.
Right. So thank you very much. With that, I'd like to go to Mr. Beauregard. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. I'll put my mic on at the right time now. I really appreciate Judy's comments and Rob's comments and Peter Bourne's comments. They really do cover a lot of the bases here, but I'm going to agree with Judy again here. We're already the cleanest in the nation by a long shot, and our numbers are getting smaller. Actually, our total footprint is, I believe, 0.0002 when compared to the rest of the world. You know, I think we ought to take a second to applaud Vermont for doing a great job at this, because Vermonters overall are doing a great job at this, and they're doing it on their own without your intervention. They want to have a better state, they want to have a cleaner, greener future, and they're doing it. So the need for you to get involved baffles me a little bit in this hand. You also should note too that there's been a study done by the UVM Center for Rural Studies, and Vermonters overwhelmingly do not support what you're doing. They do not support you banning anything. They don't support you adding more tax to their costs. They value affordability. They value reliability. They value their local companies. I see you all looking away already. You know, pay attention, please. This is my 5 minutes. My 5 minutes.
Excuse me, I was paying attention.
Yeah, we're also looking to make notes. So
please do.
Yeah.
So you mentioned with Rob Stinger, he was talking about costs, needing to know your costs. We definitely need to know our costs. You know, for you to put something out there and pass a law that it's going to be open-ended on the other side, that's not fair. Foul on that play right there. If you put a cost out there and say, we're basically making this a tax and this is how it's going to be straightforward about it. We can't go back in reverse and come up with monies that we didn't collect in the first place to pay back. So when Rob said, put a cap on the value of those credits, do it, put it into the law. You tell us you value us, but you have a funny way of showing it, Lee. You really do. You know, put this out there, put it in writing. You're not putting us out of business. Heck, if you want to put us out of business, open your checkbook and show up at the door. That's the easiest way to do it. It's happened in other industries here. When we start talking about what's really going to happen in the future, I said this last year and I'll tell you again. These small businesses, as Judy said, are going to go away because we can't play this game the way you're writing it. Large companies are going to own the whole thing. Vermonters are not going to get serviced well. Electricity isn't going to do it at the end of the day. We have hundreds of customers with heat pumps. Between us, we have thousands and thousands. And there isn't one person here that'll tell you they got customers with heat pumps that are heating their whole homes. So all it's going to do is drive up the cost of the fuel and for the end user at the end of the day. Calling this the Affordable Heat Act? Foul again. That's not true. Just basically not true. You want a suggestion? You want a suggestion how to make this better? I've got one for you. Make a lot of electricity and make it cheap. You wouldn't have to convince anyone to do anything. And that's really all I have left to say to you. Judy covered it very well. Rob covered it well. You've got the information.
Senator White.
Thank you, Chairman Bray. Thank you, Mr. Beauregard, for your testimony and also for your presentation you made on WCAX. I'm wondering if you could just explain a little bit more your comment around Vermont being one of the cleanest states and doing that without intervention. I'm wondering if you're aware of the major intervention that we did in our electric sector, which is our cleanest sector at the moment for carbon emissions.
You know, I'm somewhat aware of what was done with that electrical sector. Not completely in with all of it. I do applaud that work. I do. We see customers with, with solar on their homes. I think it's great. We see it every day. I'm not against it, and I'm not against it at all. I'm not against being clean at all. But you can't do something. You can't take what is called a societal problem, which we have, and I agree with that. And we can't put this into one group to solve it. This is going to take an entire society to solve it. We can't paste this right here and say, well, we're going to cut emissions this way. Here's some truth about that. If you want to go back into a sector, you're talking to the people here and going to make it harder for the people who can actually help you meet these goals. Because we can do it. We could do it starting tomorrow. We could actually sell you carbon neutral propane starting tomorrow. We can sell you more biofuels starting tomorrow. We could meet your goals with no trouble at all. But you've got to give us a seat at the table to do it and not make it harder for us on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. And just to reiterate, the intervention I was talking about was the creation of Efficiency Vermont and Efficiency Utility Program, which does similar to what we're proposing in the Affordable Heat Act, which is to provide incentives, rebates, and support for Vermonters to weatherize or switch fuels or access, not to switch fuels, or to move towards biofuels or other ways of heating and cooling without direct fossil fuels. Thank you.
I applaud those. I applaud that. I do. I think it's a great idea. But as the customer was on WCAX, my customer last night also said, none of that does me any good if I can't afford it up front.
Yes, and I think that that's the goal of the bill is actually to, and I'm not sure if you've had a chance to see the difference between the clean heat standard of the last session to this new bill, but we identify low and moderate income Vermonters at a much larger, on a much larger scale. The name wasn't changed just for symbolism. We did identify how to support low and moderate income Vermonters and front load them in getting access to exactly what I think you've identified as the problem, which is reducing the upfront cost. So thank you for making that.
That's true. And you're doing it again. You're looking to do that on the backs of a smaller group of people, right? You want us to do the work and get that, prepare those credits, get things done for people so that they can get something for less. If you want work done, go do it yourself. Don't ask us to do it. We've got plenty to do in an environment where we can't find enough workers day in, day out.
So
we have trucks in the yard with no one to drive them because we can't find drivers.
Well, thank you for that, and we're gonna wrap up. Just information-wise, we know that there's across the board, it doesn't matter what industry you're talking about, a workforce is an issue. So we're keenly aware that a bill is just a blueprint. You got to go out and build something, and that means that requires people to do the work. With that, we're going to go to Senator McCormick.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been very much looking forward to all of this testimony for really two areas of reasons. One is to quote Calvin Coolidge, the primary business of the American people is to do business. The legislature cannot responsibly do any legislation on any issue without hearing from business. And it is not the legislature's job or our intention to put anyone out of business. We want to hear from you so that we can do the right thing and not put you out of business. We want to address, this is a market-driven economy, and we need to hear from business in that regard. Secondly, you're the folks with your feet on the ground. on these issues. And we need your expertise. In that regard, I gotta say, I've heard some things that I think are telling me where we need to look and where we need to go, and areas that we need to pursue further. I am disappointed at a somewhat dismissive, almost sarcastic remark about that we're trying to save the world. I think what we are trying to do is have Vermont do its part. And yes, we are a very small part of the problem, but we are part of it, and that we should address our part of the problem. Also, as far as the hardship of that people of Vermont are going through, we don't need to be lectured on that. It's because they're going through a hard time that we want to address that hard time. The fact is, green energy is cheaper than fossil energy. It's more expensive to get into it in the first place. And that's the challenge, and that's what we're trying to figure out how to do. But again, the idea that this is somehow something we're trying to force down people's throats because we're not sensitive to how what a hard time they're going through is not only not true, it's 180 degrees opposite the truth. So also a couple, I just want to mention a little on the history of the inconsistency with, of our approach to electricity over the last 40 years. That's absolutely true, and it is frustrating. 30 years ago, the problem with electricity was, first of all, that a lot of it was generated with nuclear power, which created waste that we, to this day, we don't know what to do with. And so there was a desire to get off of electricity because of that. And also that Hydro-Quebec is not, it doesn't contribute to global warming as much as other technologies, but there are other environmental problems with Hydro-Quebec. So there was a certain aversion to electricity. At this point, as the problem of global warming seems to have emerged over those other issues, then we look at it a bit differently. And I just want to say one other thing, and that is, in all of this discussion all morning, it has been almost as though global warming was not an issue. And I've got to say that this discussion is part of the global warming discussion. And no plan is a plan. If anyone who doesn't like the plan that's being proffered in this bill, I'm all ears. But if I'm just hearing, well, we don't like this, so don't do it. And it's really not an answer. If not this, what? And I heard from some of the witnesses that there may actually be an answer to that. So I don't offer that question simply as a rhetorical question to make a point. If there is an answer to that, I, for one, am very enthusiastic to hear. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So to everyone, Mr. Kotis, who is listed as batting cleanup, also led off. So I've asked if he'd be willing to speak with us again next week, because I know many of you have traveled to be here, whereas he travels to be here, but he's a more regular participant.
I sleep outside in the hallway.
Okay, so committee, we have gone over, but we didn't want to have, we wanted to spend extra time with all of you. Again, anyone, we encourage you all to stay engaged. You can write to us, and all the comments we get go onto our website so that they become public comments, and we read all the testimony you submit. So if you have more to chip in, either you didn't get to it today or you have thoughts in the next week, 2 weeks, months, whatever, we hope to hear from you. And with that, we're going to adjourn for just 5 minutes. I know we've been all glued to our chairs for 2+ hours. So thank you, everyone. We'll start at 1:45.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you.